how the daily scrum helps expose the dysfunction of a team and how to fix them. Let's start with what is a definition of dysfunction. A quick internet search I came across this is a meaning or definition of dysfunction: impaired or abnormal functioning, abnormal or unhealthy interpersonal behavior or interaction within a group. So now the question is, if I want to observe the team dysfunction, how can I do it? There are a lot of different ways to observe the team dysfunction. But for a Scrum team, in my opinion, the most common and easiest approach is to observe the daily Scrum event. And what is the reason behind that? Because it occurs daily, so I don't have to wait long enough. It finishes quickly, or it should be finished within 15 minutes. It shows the interaction among the team members. It shows what is important for them as a team. So here are some of the observations I came across in my experience from the Daily Scrum. And you might come across something similar. Maybe they don't have any sprint goal. They might not be working as a team. There may be no interaction among the team members during the Daily Scrum. Or they may be too much focused on the mechanics. Remember the 3 questions of Daily Scrum in the previous Scrum guide? There might be too much focus to get the answers of those 3 questions. Or maybe it becomes a status report where everyone is just sharing the status of what they are trying to achieve. Or they may be reporting to the Scrum Master or Product Owner or someone senior or influential. It may be leading by the Scrum Master, and the people are actually waiting for a Scrum Master to start the conversation so they can perform that mechanics. It may be dragging, going more than 15 minutes, sometimes going side tracks, sometimes having the solutioning during the meetings, or maybe too much tool specific. There are too much discussion on the tool. It can be Jira and Microsoft ADO, version 1, ServiceNow, or any other tool the team is using. Or maybe it is just a component team. They are focusing too much on the component instead of focusing on creating a usable increment at the end of the sprint. Or there may be a possibility that they might not have, as a team, they might not have all the required skills to create a usable increment, not a cross-functional team. And maybe as a result of that or any other factor, there may be a lot of dependencies, maybe internal or maybe external dependencies. Or there may be a possibility the work they are performing, underlying work, is not complex. Or maybe there is no participation from the team members or no planning for work towards the sprint goal to achieve the sprint goal, or no inspect and adopt. So now let's start the conversation with one hypothetical question. If we are allowed to have a team of only one person in this situation, do we even need a daily scrum? Is there going to be any benefit of having a daily scrum in that case if we have a team of only one individual? And when I ask this question, this hypothetical question with different teams and different individuals, the answer is no. In that particular situation, we are not getting an optimal value from the daily scrum. In other words, daily scrum doesn't offer the optimal value if there is no team. So now the natural question here is, what is a team? because without a team, daily scrum might not be beneficial. And this might be a reason a lot of different teams or different individuals are facing, that they are focusing on the mechanics and they are trying to use the daily scrum mechanics, but they are not working as a team together. And let's see, what is a team? I have a very small, very quick activity which I run several times. I just did a little bit search on the Google and trying to find some famous peoples with the first name is same. In this particular example, the first name is Michael. And I'm asking the question, if we got a chance to work with these individuals at the same time, and we got all these individuals in the same room, Michael Bloomberg, Michael Jordan, Michael Schumacher, Michael Phillips, Michael Jackson, uh, or any other individual, then is this a team or is this a group? And almost all the time, I got the answer that this is not a team. This is just a group of people. And when I asked the question, follow-up question, that what makes you think that this is not a team, this is a group of people, then I got something similar answer all the time, because there is nothing common among them. They are not working on something common. They are working on a different areas. So this is what I'm getting most of the time. This is not a team. This is just a group of people who are working on a different things. So it means that we do need to have a common goal to become a team. If we do not have a common goal, then it means that we are not working as a team. And if we are not working as a team, then we are not getting the optimal value of the daily scrum. It just become the mechanics. And that is usually my follow-up question is, do we even work as a team if we do not have a sprint goal? If we do not have a common goal? If we do not have a common goal, if we do not have a sprint goal, then we are not working as a team. And if we are not working as a team, then we are not getting an optimal value from the daily scrum. So this is the very first step. We need to have a sprint goal so we can start working as a team. Now let's start having an interesting conversation. And I came across this situation several times where the team actually do have a sprint goal. But if they do have a sprint goal, then can we consider them a team? Just having the sprint goal does not make them a team. Yes, this is important. We have to have this. But this is not sufficient. Or in other words, this is a necessary condition, but this is not a sufficient condition to become a team. Let's try to come up with one example outside of the Scrum world. So to become a US Senator, one has to have a US citizenship. US citizenship is a necessary condition to become a US Senator, but it is not sufficient. One also has to win the election to become a senator. What does it mean? It means that one can be a US citizen, but not a senator. But on the reverse side, if one has a US senator, someone is a US senator, then it means that that person must have a US citizenship. If I am trying to translate this into the team and group, a group of people can have a common goal. For example, a working group. For example, a community of practice. But just having a common goal does not make them a team. On the flip side, every team must have a common goal. We cannot have a team without a common goal. So if we want to work as a sprint team and trying to get the optimal value from the daily scrum, then this is our first step. We have to work on the sprint goal as a common goal. But now the question is, if the common goal is not enough, what else do we need to become a team? If we want to become a team, then we need three things. We need a common goal. We already discussed about the common goal. We need a mutual accountability, and we need interdependency. Here, I'm just representing this visually. So what does it mean by the mutual accountability? It means that everyone in the team is accountable to achieve the common goal. For example, in any team sports, whether it is a soccer or hockey or any other team sports, everyone is accountable to achieve the goal of winning the match or whatever the team is decided. They cannot say that we didn't win the match because of those peoples. Either the whole team win the match or whole team lose the match. No matter how good or bad some individuals are performing, at the end of the day, it is the whole team win or whole team lose. This is what the mutual accountability is. Take a look at the example of Scrum. In Scrum, it is the accountability of the Scrum team to create a usable increment at the end of every sprint. So when they said it is the accountability of the Scrum team, it means that it is an accountability of product owner, the Scrum master, and developers. They cannot say we are not able to create a team because of this individual or this set of individuals or this person or this role. All of them are accountable, mutually accountable, and they need this thing, very important thing, to make themselves as a team, mutual accountability. What is the third one? Interdependency. But let's start with one simple question. What is the difference between dependency and interdependency? Let's start with one visual. So in this visual, the A depends on B. It can be two individuals, two departments, two groups, two teams, two companies, maybe two countries. So this is an example of dependency where A depends on B. But take a look at this diagram where A depends on B and B depends on A. This is an example of interdependency where both are dependent on each other. And in real world, the situation may be much more complex than this. Let's start with one very simple example of assembly line of car making. In assembly line of car making, usually what is happening, first we put the body of the car, then the doors of the car, the wheels of the car, the lights of the car, and so on. And person who is next into the assembly line depends on the person previously. What does it mean? The person who are putting the door depends on the person who are creating the body. One cannot put the door if the body is not there. One cannot put the wheel if the body is not there. So the person is dependent on the previous person who is putting the body. But is the person who is putting the body depends on the person who is putting the wheel or putting the door? No. In this example, there is no interdependency. Yes, they are dependent on each other, but they are not interdependent on each other. Now, if you are trying to see the same thing in any team sports, in team sports, whether it's a soccer, hockey, or any other sports, the players of one teams, they are dependent on each other. Whether they are a striker, midfielder, defender, all of them are dependent on each other. So this is an example of interdependency. They do have a common goal to win the match. They are mutually accountable. Either all of them are going to win the match or all of them are going to lose the match, no matter how good or bad some of the individuals are performing. And they are interdependent on each other. And why we are even discussing this thing, the dependency and interdependency, most of the time it is very much related to what type of problem we are solving. So if the interaction among the team member is dependent, then most likely, most possibly, the problem we are solving is a complicated problem. And in complicated problem, if we know, we already discussed about the Kahneman framework, we are most of the time discussing the good practices. Or there may be a simple problem where we are using the best practices. We are just doing the categorization and just put the what is best or what is good approach in that particular situation. But if the interaction among the team member is interdependent, then most likely they are trying to solve the complex problem. And in complex problem, we are going to do the inspect and adopt. We probe and then we are going to take some action. And Scrum framework is used to solve the complex problem. And that is exactly what we are doing in Scrum. We are doing the inspection and adaptation. So we are trying to reduce our deviation, minimize our deviation from our desired outcome. Let's take a look at one more observation. In this particular situation, the daily scrum is led by the scrum master, and the developers are waiting for a scrum master to start the conversation, join the meeting, enters the room, or maybe they are reporting to the scrum master or product owner or team lead or architect or manager or any other influential person. Maybe the influential person is one of the developer. And what is happening in this particular situation? The team is not self-organized and self-managed. And as a result of that, if they are not self-organized and they are not self-managed, then it kills the creativity and innovation. They are just doing what someone asked them to do. They are not taking the ownership as a team. Let's take a look at one more example. Team are not working towards creating a usable increment at the end of the sprint. There is no conversation about creating a usable increment. And what is happening in this particular situation? There may be a lack of skills. They might not have required skills to create a usable increment. As a result of that, it is no more a cross-functional team. There may be too much external dependencies. Or they might be creating an increment, but that increment might not be useful for the stakeholders to get a feedback. When this is happening, when they are working as a component team, most likely, and they are working on some of the component, and in that situation, at the end of the sprint, they created some of the component, but they are not able to get that component into the hands of the stakeholders to get the feedback. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have a party at home and you want to get some cake. You went to your local bakery and you found there are tons and tons of cakes there. And now you ask the person at the bakery that, can you have a taste of some of the cakes so you can make a decision which one you are going to buy? And they said yes, and they will give you the base foundation of one of the cake, icing of another cake, frosting of another cake. Are you able to make a decision based on only foundation or icing or frosting? We cannot make a decision only based of the only basis of the foundation or icing or frosting. We need the full chunk of the cake to make a decision. Similarly, in the software development, if we are working only on one increment, like improve the database connectivity, improve the database procedure, only on the security layer, only on one small component of the whole product, which may or may not have any impact on the stakeholders in that particular situation, we might not be able to get the feedback from the stakeholders. And if we are not able to get the feedback from the stakeholders, then we are breaking the inspect and adopt cycle. We are breaking the empiricism. So how does all of this is related to the daily scrum? It is a quick summary here. I'm trying to put some of the things, some of the observation. There might be some potential problem and might be some reason. If there is no sprint goal, then the problem here is we do not have a common goal. It means we are not working as a team. If there is no interaction among the team member, most likely they are not working dependent on each other. They are working on their own individual things and they are only worried about their own things. So there is no interdependency and they might not be solving some complex problem. They might be working on some complicated problem. Excuse me. Everyone focus on their own work. They usually do not care what the other people are working. In this particular situation, there is no mutual accountability. And one of the reason might be there is no trust among the team member. Excuse me. If it is led by the scrum master or report to someone, excuse me, then it is not a self-managed team. One might be the reason is they do not have the good understanding of the scrum framework. They might not know what the intent of the daily scrum is. It is a daily planning meeting where we inspect and adopt our progress towards the sprint goal and trying to achieve the sprint goal. Excuse me. Not working towards the usable increment. If they are if they are not working towards the usable increment, then they are not able to get the feedback on the increment and break the empiricism cycle. It maybe they are not a cross-functional team, requires lack some of the skills, or maybe working as a component team. Or if they are too much focused on the three questions or the tools or the mechanics, then they are not able to inspect and adopt their progress towards the towards the sprint goal, and they probably are not able to make a daily plan to achieve the sprint goal. And one of the possible reason is they might not have the good understanding of the scrum framework and they need the education to know what is the intent of the daily scrum and the scrum framework. So what should be our first step? What should we do? We saw that most of the problems are related to the team building. If they are not working as a team, then we saw a lot of these dysfunctions. So that should be our first step. Start with a team. One cannot get the optimal value of a Scrum framework without a team. If we are just working as a group of people and trying to use the Scrum framework on a group of people, we might get some benefit, but we are not getting the optimal benefit from the Scrum framework. And here, usually my example is, if about the Ferrari, and use the Ferrari to do the grocery. Are we getting the value from this? I might argue, yes, we might getting the value instead of going to the grocery store on the walking. Now I'm using the car, I'm using the Ferrari to go to the grocery store. So I might be getting some value, but is this the optimal use of Ferrari? If I just want to use the grocery, then I might get much cheaper value cars than getting a Ferrari. I might do the same thing with probably Corolla or Sentra or Civic. I might not need a Ferrari in that case. So if we are trying to use the Scrum framework on a group of people, then we might get some benefit, but it is not the optimal value of the Scrum framework. We might not get the optimal advantage of the Scrum framework if you are not working as a team, if you are working as a group of people. So the first thing is start building the trust among the team members. And how can we build the trust? Trust happens when we focus more on the Scrum values, not on the Scrum mechanics. Scrum values help us to achieve the trust. If we are going to be more vulnerable with each other, if you are focused, if you are open to each other, if you have a courage to speak, if you are respect to each other, if you are committed to achieve our best, then we are going to build a trust. And then we are moving towards building a team, not a group of individuals. No team can be made without a common goal. We should have a product goal for our product, and we should have a sprint goal in each sprint, that what are we trying to achieve in this sprint. That is our common goal for that sprint, that give us a focus. And that should be our conversation in the daily scrum. Our conversation on the daily scrum should be our progress towards the sprint goal, not on the individual task or individual work the peoples are doing. All the work should be related to how this work help us to achieve our sprint goals. One of the common practice I observe the good teams are doing is during the daily scrum, they made their sprint goal visible. Either they are doing in person or virtually, the sprint goal is visible all the time. So everyone is looking at the sprint goal and they are having a conversation how to achieve this sprint goal today. How can we move forward, progress towards this sprint goal today? Everyone in a Scrum team should be accountable to create a usable increment. And when it is a Scrum team, it means it includes the product owner and Scrum Master. They are also accountable to create a usable increment. They cannot say that it is a developer's work. And how can we achieve this thing? Education on what is the intent of the Scrum and all of its element. That is more important than the mechanics of the Scrum. And that is all for now. Thank you.